Yeah. All right, this is Mike Asti, otherwise known as the Buzzsaw, here with Angie Lewis, otherwise known as Lady Hattrick. Sure, all you guys know her from Washington Post, the HockeyWriters.com, a bunch of different sites out there. She is the Caps beat writer for the HockeyWriters.com, and had a press pass, was covering the Winter Classic, the Capitals' victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins. Kind of in a bias right now, seeing some Steeler jerseys next to us. We're here in a Panera here in Pittsburgh before her flight, and want to get your reaction. So I didn't have a press pass. You did. You got the whole media aspect of it. You got to go to the game, get to see behind the scenes, meet the players, meet the coaches, meet the other members of the media that maybe you looked up to in the past and you've known throughout some time now through your career. And before we get into the game, what did you take from the whole experience as a whole?
The entire Winter Classic experience.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Like, it was absolutely awesome. It was unbelievable. This is my first Winter Classic I'm going to, especially as press. And so to have the opportunity to come to Pittsburgh, of all places.
First trip here too, and yes. It wasn't a bad one.
It wasn't bad. Pittsburgh treated me well, but it was really, really cool, I have to say. A lot of people were excited. It was like a playoff game.
I honestly could equate it just from being a fan as a Super Bowl experience. Really, it was like
almost
a Super Bowl atmosphere.
Exactly.
Honestly, I mean, the Steelers have been in a couple in the last 10 years, so I've kind of got that atmosphere in Pittsburgh. And you had fans from all across the country in Penguins and Caps sweaters. They weren't just from DC. Flyers fan, hockey fan. Yeah, you're going to see people all over the place. I know I went to first night celebrating New Year's. Downtown Pittsburgh, there were fans from all over the place. The crowds were immense. People just all over. And, it just seemed like a great atmosphere overall. Now, being at the game, seeing all the fans out there at a football stadium, where it's a little bit different of a feel, where they had the last couple of years, were at Wrigley, at Fenway, at baseball parks, old-fashioned baseball parks, almost 100 years in Wrigley's sense, going back to the trend of where they were at Buffalo's stadium, 2008, when the Penguins and Sabres played. What do you think the kind of differences are? I know you weren't at the baseball Winter Classics, but just taking it from being able to view the ice, what do you see a benefit doing it at a football stadium? Do you see that's more where we're going to go in the future?
A baseball field has, even for watching a baseball game.
Right.
I've been to many baseball games. I've been to Fenway for Red Sox games.
Okay.
I'm a Red Sox fan. So, the angles in general are very interesting to view a sporting event in general at a baseball field.
Especially an old-fashioned baseball field like Fenway, too.
Looking at Wrigley's field,
right.
like
bars in your face,
that was
you're
really
not going to see the ice at all.
Like, the far angle, like extremely far from the play. I like the idea of a football field. Football field is a lot more centered,
right?
And I feel like everybody gets an equal look at the ice
as much as possible, really,
exactly.
Too. It's not a hockey arena,
right? And then viewing from the press box, I know in Buffalo's it was a lot higher up, and
yeah.
As some other football fields were. Heinz Field was probably the best viewing experience from the press perspective, and probably the fans as well, because of the fact that everything was just at a really even level, and I thought
that's
it worked out pretty well.
Too what their idea was when they built the field, because it's one of the newer fields. It actually is the newest field they've ever done a Winter Classic or an outdoor game at all. So they kind of built it for that sense, not necessarily for the Winter Classic, but just even being there watching games as a Steeler fan, you get to see more of the game. You can, even high up there, you can way up over the 50-yard line, you can still see the action very well. Now getting away from kind of a fan perspective, the game. Capitals got the victory here. You donned out here. You can't see. I don't know if you can see a little bit more of. You got the Caps gear there, Winter Class 2011. Of course, you got to pimp that here in Pittsburgh before you leave. Show it off to all the Penguin fans out there. But the game kind of had a lot of hype going into it. It was Crosby, Ovechkin. NBC was comparing it, Bird and Magic for what they say of the NBA, Lakers, Celtics. They're comparing the Crosby, Ovechkin rivalry to that. They were doing that prior to this, bringing their resumes out, showing all the other players out there. And they were kind of giving it a feel that they were, treating it as if it was going to be this big shootout where Ovechkin and Crosby were both going to get hat tricks, and the fans were going to go crazy, and it was going to be like the Stanley Cup final, and it was going to prelude the Eastern Conference final and all of that. But then the game started, and you get more of a chippiness. It could have, you had the ice wasn't really always thought to be the best. you had a chippiness, you had the grinders kind of stepping up,
Right.
and the goalies kind of were feeling each other out. It was slow paced early on, and then all of a sudden, just erupted. The crowd got into it. The fight happened. All the players stepped aside. They squared at it. It was like a boxing match, like Ali Frazier. And give us your perspective of that. When that finally happened, what were you thinking, and how did it change for you?
Well, first of all, I want to make the comment that there was a disconnect between probably the hype and what the actual people in the game knew. I mean, the media and I think fans that are more hockey knowledgeable and the players and the coaches, they all knew exactly what to expect, or not necessarily exactly what to expect, but were more prepared for the chippy and the grinding out kind of game. And there's this huge disconnect with the media, and you're thinking that Ovechkin and Crosby are going to score like 4 goals and it's going to be high scoring because the teams have a history for high scoring. Like that doesn't necessarily there was.
Never happens at big games either.
Right there. Yeah. Exactly. And so I feel like that, that was a little incorrect hyping, but we can probably get to that a little later about the hype. But in terms of the fight, that was like that really energized the crowd. It got the players, back, because the game started to kind of trail off and excitement and levels and stuff. And I felt like when John Artson makes that huge hit on Michael Rupp, and Michael Rupp's like, "Oh, really?" And then he chooses to go and
seemed like they kind of knew what they were doing too. They were like, "All right, we're bored, so now we're just gonna have a real winter classic."
You want to go? You want to go? I'm bored. So and they danced, and it was probably one of the best hockey fights I'd seen in a while.
It was kind of evenly matched too.
It
honestly.
was. I mean, Jonathan was getting schooled at first, but he came back and really took over that fight, and I thought it was a very even bout, and it was good. It was good old time hockey, outdoors, under the lights, and you got a good old.
Would you agree though that I kind of almost think like that might even be the image of the Winter Classic? Like, yeah, there were goals scored, and yeah, there were great saves and different controversies. But once that fight seems like it for a photographer's dream. That might, seeing the players walk away from them and leave them out there in the open ice to just brawl at each other. It seemed like that might be one of the lasting images of the 2011 Winter Classic.
I think between us, like hockey fans and stuff, we're gonna look at that fight and be like, this is what we watch the sport for. Like that kind of.
Yeah, Batman. We're not gonna get rid of fighting.
Yeah, don't do it.
They made the whole classic.
Like I think it's one of the images. I think the story is more of the. The ice situation and scoring and all that stuff, but especially for Capitals and Penguins fans, it's something to look back on, embody the disdain each team has for one another, and the disdain the fans have for one another, and it certainly is
not going to stop the rivalry. That certainly ignited. If it ever had a lull, that's going to keep it going.
It proved that this rivalry is real.
And after seeing that fight, after seeing this Winter Classic, you just kind of hope. I know the Caps, they don't really care who they play, but you can kind of hope they maybe meet in the playoffs one more time. Because that would be a great way to keep promoting the sport. And, talking about a little bit of promoting the sport right now, what do you think this one, do you like the way, is there anything you would change, or do you like the way it's going right now? I mean, it's been New Year's Day, it's been in the afternoon. And I actually did a rant on that a few days ago before the Winter Classic. It kind of seemed like it was a dumb time slot because I'm going to watch it no matter what. But there's a lot of sports fans out there, a lot of friends of mine who are knowledgeable sports fans, but they don't like hockey that much, that they can't not watch, Penn State and Florida in order to watch the Winter Classic. Mm-hmm. So when you got the moonlight feel, you got to put it at night. You only are competing against the Fiesta Bowl. UConn, they're in the game. They don't have that much of a fan base. Oklahoma does, but it's not, they've been losing the last few bowl games. So you got more of the country turned on to the Winter Classic. And I was getting a lot of texts from friends of mine who hate hockey, giving their opinions of the broadcast, and who were, whether they're correct or not, they were watching the game and they were helping the ratings. Do you maybe see us going more toward that direction? If you were in charge, what would you do to keep promoting the sport?
I'll take the bait. I really enjoyed the prime time slot. I mean, I think for the first few years, having an afternoon was okay. It was the first few years getting a feel for it. But now that you've done a prime time game, you have to keep going on that prime time slot. Like, if you really want to promote the game, like earlier in the day, they were kept showing past Winter Classics, and and then you had the Wayne Gretzky golf thing. It's like
Yeah.
you go through all of that, and then you lead up to the Winter Classic of that year. Make it a hockey day,
Yeah, that
and
was great. I could not
really
believe
enjoyed
NBC did that because I still have not passed a couple years ago when they cut an NHL playoff overtime game to give us free coverage
the
of the
Devils
Kentucky
and the
Derby.
Senators.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, I'm still not past that, so
I'm
we're
not.
getting closer now based on yesterday. I'm more friendly with NBC, but we're not fully there yet because I don't, I'm not totally in favor of that at all, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again.
I mean,
but,
I would also challenge the league to consider. Now, I mean, I understand New Year's Day is the standard. I mean, I'm not saying that I would be angry if they didn't do this, but
right.
I think part of the excitement in this was that it was a weekend. Think
Right.
about it. New Year's Day is not always going to fall on a weekend. We won't be that lucky.
And they really want to have, for some weird reason, they're like, it has to be New Year's Day. It has to be
Right.
the first game of 2011. Just has to be. We won't be able to go on with our lives unless it is.
Right, and so I think it's important the NHL might want to consider making it on the first weekend in January, more so than the
Right.
day. I think it's more important. Like Thanksgiving is on a particular day. Thanksgiving is the last Thursday of November.
Right.
I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's what made this a little better. I mean, people didn't have to take off and work too much.
And honestly, not to condone this or not, but New Year's Day celebrating, you got to sleep in a little bit longer.
Condone it, please.
Wear the hangover off, and then you watch the Winter Classic. I'm sure even the players liked it. They were able to maybe partake a bit that they would not have been at all because
Ovechkin talked about it. Ovechkin was like, it's like, we get to take a nap and we get to party and then take a nap.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure
the players were excited about.
He was able to ring in the new year where previously he would have not been able to do so, or might have been able to, a little toned down, less of a sense there.
And the media, I mean, we worked really hard all week to bring the coverage to everybody and the coverage to our local affiliates and nationally. Like, I didn't sleep until New Year's Day. So it was really helpful to not have to wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning and probably 8 o'clock.
Maybe even earlier to get ready and prepare. I mean, you probably wouldn't have slept at all.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, So it was beneficial for everybody, and I think. Yeah, and the weather turned out too. So.
Yeah, and there was some trepidation with that. They did move it because they thought there was going to be rain, and it turned out really they could have probably had it in the day.
Yeah.
And there would have been no problem. But I was much happier to have it in
the temperatures were definitely warmer, less warm at night. Game time start was 51 degrees apparently.
Okay. So. You would still maybe even like it to be a little colder than that.
Yeah.
But
it can last.
The ice turned out to be relatively okay from what I heard. But the Winter Classic being so successful, you bring in the casual fans, you've had it at historic fields at Fenway and Wrigley, you've now had it at 2 football stadiums, and we know they have the Heritage Classic. They do have that kind of a Canadian feel to it. Do you like the idea of having it be an annual thing? Do you want to skip a year, have more than one every season?
I like the annual thing. I like it just once a year.
Right. You don't want to overkill a good thing.
Exactly. And then and it becomes a gimmick when 2 things happen. When they were talking about the possible weather situations and if they had to go to a shootout.
Right.
The first half the shootout would happen just before the Penguins-Caps game in Washington. And
I would have loved to see how they put this together because this made no sense.
Or maybe like 1 year if there was a delay or something, then we'd have to play the first part and this day and then the next part another day, basically starting 2 games. It becomes a gimmick when you compromise the actual rules of the game.
Yeah.
And it's just then that's when advantages really start to.
I don't think anybody on any side, purist or not, wanted that.
Exactly.
I mean, even Lemieux was saying in his, conference before the alumni game, we're going to play this. We're going to find a way to play this. We have to play it. If we don't play it and we have to go anywhere that is not Heinz Field outdoors, it's a failure.
That's true.
No matter what happens.
And he was right about that. And then it also becomes a gimmick when you play it, when you have outdoor games a lot more than I think once
Right.
a year. The Heritage Classic, I mean, you can't really do much about it because
It doesn't get anywhere near the love as the Winter Classic, even from Canada.
No, actually, funny story. So I had a buddy who was in Detroit,